What's up guys, Intellitech Studios here, and Dyson recently discontinued the exact machine that you see in front of you, the Dyson Ball Multifloor 2, model number UP19. Now this was Dyson's attempt at a mid-range compact, more so semi-compact upright vacuum. This machine is 2 pounds lighter than the previous generation Dyson Ball Multifloor 1, as well as the accompanying Dyson Ball Animal 2 and the replacement Ball Animal 3. So this machine is designed to be a little bit more lightweight, but you sacrifice a little bit of bin capacity and a little bit of power. Now, given the fact that these machines have now been discontinued, and the only body style Dyson that's currently in production is this 17-pound body style, then if you do find one of these, either refurbished, used, or otherwise in decent condition, is it worth the price delta, especially since you're probably going to find one of these anywhere in the $150 to $250 range for used? Is that a good deal? Well, let's find out in this full in-depth review of the Dyson UP19 Ball Multifloor 2. Of course, the most important aspect of any vacuum cleaner is its pickup performance. So while I have been using this for an extended period of time and will comment on the deep cleaning abilities of it later, for now we'll do the pickup test where I will pick up potato flakes off of both carpet, bare floor, and the transition between the two. For the carpets, I'll have the brush roller on, and on the bare floors I'm going to turn off the brush roller with the silver button that's right next to the power button on the top of the machine. So we're going to do the pickup test really quick and see how it does. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at the results. Okay, looking at the carpet. Okay, there's one flake. 2 flakes. Okay. So, we can see a small line of flakes right by the transition strip. And now on the floor. So I just wiped my hand on the floor. You can see there are some flakes left behind, in addition to some dust. So the first pass performance on carpet was excellent. It got pretty much all the flakes. And these are white flakes after all on a brown carpet, so it is very easy to see. So the vacuum's ability to pick up the flakes not only on the surface of the carpet, but also what few of them have fell in between the pile. It did a great job at picking up most, if not all of them, on just the first pass. Now the transition strip, of course, always beats a lot of vacuums, and it seems that the active base plate seal still wasn't quite enough to get the little bit of potato flakes along the border between the floor and the carpet. As far as the bare floor itself, it did okay, about average. Most vacuums don't do very well on bare floors unless they have a soft roller. Now, this particular Dyson did okay, but it'd be the kind of thing where you'd want to go over it a couple more times to see if it gets everything. In fact, that's what we're going to test right now. So, as you expect, it got all the flakes on the carpet, got most of them on the transition strip. There's still a couple left in between the carpet and the bare floor. And the floor itself, okay. So wiping my hand on the floor, there's not much left. There's a couple small pieces. There's a random hair. But other than that, once I gave it a couple passes, it actually did get pretty much all the flakes on both carpets and bare floors. The transition strip is still a little funky, but of course a crevice tool will fix that. So the results of the pickup test were pretty good. This machine did very well on carpet, it did pretty okay on bare floors, and the transition strip was one of the better performances that I've seen. Now, the question is, does that reflect the deep cleaning abilities on carpet based on my usage? And the answer is yes. This Dyson actually does clean very well on carpets, although keep in mind, one issue with these older style cleaner head Dysons with the Dyson 1 and 2 series is that these cleaner heads are not as versatile as they are on the newest generation Ball Animal 3. The reason being is that the active base plate that's on these cleaner heads is sometimes not friendly to certain types of carpet, and I'll actually show that in a sec. So, one way that you can disconnect the cleaner head is by popping off this silver clip, and the cleaner head pops off just like that. So I'm going to reattach the clip just so this is out of the way. Okay, now I can show you what I'm talking about. So, we can see after using this for a bit, I have not cleaned this up in preparation for this review. I just grabbed it and started using it. Now I've noticed there's a little bit of hair wrapping. It's not too horrible. I've seen some people claim that these are magnets for hair. The only time I've noticed that is when people actually don't maintain it. So yeah, like I mentioned, there are certain types of carpet where the active base plate, which is this little accordion style design right here, can sometimes not agree with certain types of carpet, particularly if it has a sealed backing. So if your carpet has a porous backing, you shouldn't have any issues with this active base plate sealing down because it should still be able to pull airflow through the bottom of the pile. But if you have a completely solid backing on your carpet, then this will likely clamp down to it and be very difficult to push. And that kind of active base plate seal design can sometimes be a potential cause for concern if you have certain types of carpeting, and that's been a lot of complaints with these machines, especially what you've seen in various reviews over the years. So if you're worried about this, then upgrading to the Dyson Ball Animal 3 would remedy that issue because that has an adjustable gate on the front of the cleaner head. But as far as this variant, you just have the base plate as it is. Now, I mentioned the difference between this and the Dyson Slim Ball UP16. The only difference between my version of the Slim Ball is that the bristles were slightly less dense and there was a small felt strip on the back here to seal it. But most versions of the Slim Ball have been updated with this exact cleaner head, only with purple brushes and without the yellow piece. So basically this is just the standard silver. And there's this little bumper right here, which is what it's supposed to function as. The base plate is very easy to remove, which I do like. You can just simply turn both of these tabs. It's not quite as easy to service as the new Ball Animal 3, because while this base plate is removable and you can wash this or clean it, whatever you want to do to it, these brush rolls are held in by screws, and these screws are very cheap, unfortunately. Dyson put very low quality screws in these, so they strip out very easily when you try to remove the brush rolls. And if you do strip out these screws, then you pretty much just have to replace the whole cleaner head. You also want to make sure to keep this clean, because a lot of times hair can get stuck in the drive between these brush rollers, and if it builds up a lot over a span of several years, this drive could strip itself out. And if you have any issues where one brush spins but the other one doesn't, then you're going to have to change your cleaner head. But the good news is that these are replaceable parts, and if you have any issues with this, Dyson will replace it if your machine is under warranty, which is definitely very good, as Shark does not do that. They expect you to replace that out of your own pocket if it breaks. Now, whenever you put this back on, also, I forgot to mention that this little channel right here can sometimes get debris stuck behind it, especially if you have pets. Debris can get stuck right here behind this gate. Generally, whenever I use one of these Dysons as a daily, I prefer to take this guard out. Dyson doesn't recommend it, but you can take this guard out, put the screws back in. You'd have to take the brush rollers out first, And then there's less of a gap between the brushes and the actual intake, and that's better for airflow. So that is a little trick that you can do to get better performance out of these base plates. Then when you put this back in, it just rocks back on. It can be a little tricky to get this on properly. You have to make sure that both sides actually sit in place and that they're locked in towards the front. And once you push this down, that clips down. Same story with this. And now it's on all the way. One thing I've also noticed with Dysons over the years, and this is the truth with all Dysons, is that one thing I like is that you can actually run this along the baseboards, and not only is the edge cleaning very good because it gets very close to the edges, but also if you get paint marks on this, it's very easy to rub this off with just the abrasive side of a sponge and some isopropyl alcohol. So you can very easily clean up the sides of this. You can tell mine has gotten a little bit scuffed up from me running it along my baseboards, but it's very easy to clean up once that does happen. Of course, the deep scratches are a different story. This motor is bigger than the previous cleaner heads like the DC41, the DC40, so that means that this is more powerful and it cleans a lot better, but this motor does stick up a bit more, so you're going to have a harder time getting underneath things, but the Ball Animal 3 fixes that with its direct drive cleaner head. Now, if you have a DC40 or a DC41, don't be fooled and think that this performs the same as those, because it doesn't. Even though there's one less row of brush strips, these brushes are a lot more dense, and this actually has a really good amount of agitation, and it cleans very well for a Dyson. This is easily the best cleaning Dyson that they had ever come out with to date. I heard some people argue the 17 is better, and that's just not true. This does clean better, provided that your carpet agrees with it and will allow it to push properly. So you also have these little rubber coated wheels down here, which, even though these are rubber coated, this does sometimes make some noise when it's on bare floors. I'm not sure why that is. It's just the way it's designed. We've also got wheels back here. So even though these are rubber coated, because of how small they are, it makes a lot of noise when it's on bare floors. So I've heard some people speculate that it's not friendly to bare floors for that reason. And that's not true. These are rubber coated, so you won't have any issues with scratching your floors. After all, plastic can't usually scratch floors anyways, unless it catches some sand underneath it. But if that's the case, any floor tool that you would use would do that. So there's not really anything bad about the Dyson head in that way. You got to be careful with these. Sometimes these connectors and this little plastic thing can break, but otherwise these are pretty solid. But you just want to make sure to keep these maintained, keep the brush roll clean. There are these little guides where you can run scissors along and clean them up, and that is all that. If you don't want to deal with all that, or you're worried about having issues and you just want to use it and not worry about maintenance, then upgrading to the Ball Animal 3 with the hair removal vanes would probably be a good option. Now that we've talked about the performance, then let's move on to how you use the machine, because that's pretty important if you are picking up one of these and you're wondering how to use it. If you're not familiar with the Dyson DC40, if you are familiar with the DC40 or any of the newer ball Dysons that are of this design, then you'll know how to use it for the most part. But whenever you recline it, some people have complained about the mechanism that you use to recline it. It's just a quick release mechanism. You just simply push it down and the wheels pop up. You want to make sure the wheels pop up all the way, because that actually changes the valve from the tools over to the floor head. And now you can use the ball to swivel, which does swivel very well, although admittedly having a full-size head on this more compact machine is a little weird. It would be nice if this actually had a smaller cleaner head. Another reason why I think the Ball Multifloor 3, had it existed, would have been a pretty good option. But in this case, you do have a nice long cleaner head, and some people point out the fact that this is wider than the Ball Animal 3, but the actual effective cleaning area is about the same, and still a bit better on the Animal 3, because you don't have that blind spot where the drive is. Because of that drive spot, you have to actually overlap your strokes in order to get the part of the carpet where the brush wouldn't be touching if you just did one forward and back pass. Now, I've heard some people complain about the ball and say that it's not very smooth. When the ball is working properly, it swivels very well, and it's really good for getting around corners, and I use this all the time. So I personally find the ball to be one of the best swivel decks on any vacuum, although there's some that I haven't used. I haven't used some of the high-end premium bag vacuums like the Seagull Felix or the Miele U1 just yet, but out of all the bagless vacuum swivels that I've used, this one is by far the best. I've used ones from Bissell, from Hoover, from Oreck, from whatever other brands there are, Shark, and Dyson is the best. Now, the one on the new Stratos is pretty good, but I still think the edge goes to Dyson, because it's a little bit more controllable than it is on the Stratos. It's very close, but it's a little bit more controllable and a little bit more precise with your movement. So if you're wanting to actually turn a 90-degree angle, it's a lot more steerable than, well, some other steerable vacuums. So a lot of people will discount this ball and just call it another swivel neck. It really isn't. It actually is a lot better than other swivel necks. And also, you witnessed putting it in the upright position. You just bring the handle forward until the wheels click down and you hear a second click. So, for that, now it's in. Sometimes the second click won't be heard. See? Oh, okay, that still did it. But again, every time that I've done it, it clicks up into the upright position. The only time it doesn't is if I'm really far back and I don't push it forward far enough. But most of the time, it pops up in one smooth motion. Of course, the one time I say that, it was a little rough. Sometimes these wheels don't pop down for a bit. But again, it's never been a problem when I'm actually using the machine. It just pops up and it's locked. Now, of course, that does mean that if you have this in your closet, for example, and you're trying to put your weight on this to like support you while you're trying to reach back for something, don't do that because it's just going to fall backwards, and that's by design. So the upright lock mechanism is only designed to support the weight of the machine. And now you can sort of wheel it on the back wheels, but it's not really designed to do that. It's obviously designed to pop down. And I've complained about that in the past, but after actually using this, it's not a big deal because there's nothing wrong with putting it down in the upright position and roll it, and then put it upright. And when you carry it, the carrying handle is right here at the top of the bin. You just pick it up right there and carry it that way. You don't really want to pick it up by the handle because, oh, it wasn't locked that time. You don't really want to pick it up by the handle because, oops, sorry, the tripod just got caught. But you don't want to pick it up by the handle because this is very thin plastic right here, and that's by design. Dyson calls it lean engineering, whatever that means. Basically just means they use less plastic to make it more lightweight, but as a result it's going to be a little bit more fragile. But the good news is that it still is pretty durable because these plastics are designed to flex, which is good because it means that it's absorbing the impact of being moved around and it's not just going to crack at any slight flex. So there is some advantages and disadvantages there, but when you pick it up by the handle, it'll feel like it's wiggling a little bit, and it does make a lot of noise, but this machine is several years old, it still hasn't broken yet, and I have never seen one of these actually snap at the spine. So that shouldn't be a problem as long as you're not crazy rough with it. Although this does creak a lot more and the build quality isn't as good as the previous generation Dyson Ball Multifloor 1. But this is much heavier. Well, it's a little bit heavier, it's 2 pounds heavier, but in the hand it feels a lot heavier. This feels very lightweight. So yeah, as far as the wand and all that goes, it's very simple. You've got the quick release wand, you got a wand cap that holds this up. This blocks this off, so whenever it's upright you can hear the air rushing through it, and you can just grab the wand and yank it off in one swift motion. Now, of course, you can pull this hose down until it clicks onto the end of that wand, or you can press this yellow button and pull it all the way off to attach your attachments at the end of the hose. So it's fairly self-explanatory. Where this little clip is right here, this little button, is where the attachments clip onto, and it's very easy to put it away. Now, the attachments you get with this is a combination dusting brush and crevice tool, and this is actually the proper one. I saw a recent review where they actually had the crevice tool and dusting brush combo from the previous generation, and they tried to say that they were the same size. Well, common sense, they're definitely not the same size. This one is almost twice as long. So that person in that review was complaining about how when you're getting in your couches, the brush can get in the way, which, yeah, I can see that, but you can remove this brush, and it's even easier to do on this newer tool. Not only is this crevice tool longer than the previous generation, the brush also slides off a lot more easily with a much more functional button. So if you don't like to have this in the way when you're using the crevice tool, you can pop this off and you have a nice long crevice tool with suction relief, although these don't really do much, they're too small to get into all of your nooks and crannies. And also this does add the reach whenever you're using it as a dusting brush, which I've mainly found it very helpful whenever I'm getting up into corners. So you can see right there where the corner is, I found that having this on the end of the wand gives it a good amount of reach to actually reach up there, and it's my preferred tool for that task. However, for overall dusting, this dusting brush is not the best, but it's not necessarily designed to be, because this is supposed to be a medium stiffness, because Dyson makes separate, larger tools that are both softer and stiffer. So they have larger soft dusting brushes, and they have stiff bristle brushes. So no matter what type of brush you want to use for that particular cleaning task, Dyson does have an attachment available. So the one out of the box being a little bit medium in terms of softness and stiffness does make sense. And the bristles being flared does help in terms of overall dusting whenever you're above floor dusting. When you're dusting things like coffee tables and stuff, it can flick debris, so it's not perfect, but I did already do a very thorough demo of this on my Dyson Ball Animal 3 review, and this is the exact same tool. So that works pretty well, and there's not much else to say about it, other than while the longer crevice tool does improve for getting into crevices, it does make the brush a little bit more awkward when you're trying to use it on the hose, because you have all that reach to deal with. But, you know, you get that trade-off. The crevice tool's better, but the dusting brush isn't as good. But honestly, that makes sense, because there's a lot more brush alternatives than there is crevice tool alternatives. So that works just fine. As far as the upholstery tool, which is the only other machine that this machine comes with, this is fairly typical. So it's just a basic upholstery tool. Older versions had an extra brush strip on the top, but it's the same. This works very well. I initially didn't like it, but after using it a lot more, it works very well, and there isn't much to complain about, although I do wish there was suction relief on the machine. Specifically, in a similar vein to Shark, I wish Dyson would add a suction control slider right here, where we could adjust the suction that actually makes it to the hose, so that way for tasks that don't require as much suction, we could better control the amount of suction that we get, and that would make these tools a lot more universally useful, and not just for applications where we need a ton of suction, like pet hair. Although for that, this does do very well. And of course, you can get other attachments like the tangle-free turbine, which I have over here. This works very well. I've demoed that before. And there's other attachments, like I mentioned, if you wanted a softer dusting brush, you can get the carbon fiber dusting brush, or there's an older version that's a slightly different design as well. So you have plenty of accessory options if you don't like the in-box accessories. But the nice thing about the in-box accessories is, ooh, I just accidentally sat on a Christmas glass that I randomly had sitting here. Sorry about that if the noise scared you. But anyways, this upholstery tool also fits on like this. I saw another review where the person had the tool on backwards and they were complaining as to why it kept falling off. I mean, when you have it on this way, it's not designed to go on this way, so it's going to be a lot easier to knock off. But when you put it on this way, the actual tool is facing inwards, so nothing's going to get caught on it and knock it off. And then of course your upholstery tool, this brush can slide down to the end, and you can snap it right on board. So the onboard attachments are very good. I usually use the hose for most things. I only use the wand when I'm getting up into corners, but it works very good for that purpose. Although I've mentioned this on both their uprights and their stick vacs, it would be nice if they had an option of a wand that was sold separately that had a telescoping option for those people that don't just want a hose but also want a wand that's shorter than the one that comes on the machine. And I've also heard some people complain about wand storage and the fact that you can't store the wand on the machine when you're using the tools. But to me, I don't really understand the complaining about that, because if you're using if you're using the tools around your house, then you're going to be likely switching between using the wand and not using the wand anyway. So as you're pulling the vacuum along, you're going to have the wand around you anyways. So, and this wand is bright yellow or bright red on other machines, so it's not like you're going to lose it. So I didn't really see that being as much of an issue, and it is of course one less thing that you have to worry about being on the design that you can lose, because it's integrated into the handle. Now I do wish, speaking of the handle, while I do like this handle, considering the fact the handle stays on the machine now and the wand is separate, I wish Dyson would add a cord clip right here onto the handle to help keep the cord out of the way, especially because now that the wand does not have to be the handle anymore, and it's not, then that'd be a good way to have the cord clipped onto the handle so that way we can keep the cord out of the way even when we're using the tools. Because I have noticed that once in a while the cord will get wrapped around the feet right here, and will cause it to either yank over, pull the machine over, or in my case, it actually ripped the plug out of the wall because it got tangled around this, and I had to stop dusting and plug it back in. So that would be a nice little addition to have a cord clip right up here on the side of the handle. And that'd be something very easy for Dyson to add because these handles are replaceable, so you could even upgrade your old one if they added that feature. So, speaking of the cord, this machine has a 31-foot cord, which is pretty good. 35 feet is the sweet spot, and most of the Dysons that you're going to get nowadays, like the Ball Animal 2 and Animal 3, as well as the Multifloor Origin that replaced this temporarily, all those machines have 35-foot cords, so this cord is a little bit shorter, but 31 feet is still perfectly acceptable. Anything that's above 30 feet is really good in my opinion, especially if it's below 40 feet. Of course, there's no retractable cord or rewind mechanism, which some people have complained about, but to me it's just one other thing that can break. And we do have a quick release cord hook for whenever we want to release the cord very quickly. So you've got plenty of options as far as releasing the cord very quickly, and winding it up doesn't take that long either, so I haven't really found that to be a problem. As far as using the machine, the power button is right here, and the brush roll on-off button is right here, so you press that to turn on your machine. One thing to note is that the brush roller always resets to the on position every time you turn the machine off. So if you are vacuuming bare floors and you turn off the machine, it is not going to remember your settings. So you're going to have to remember to turn the brush roller off the second you recline the machine, otherwise you could potentially scatter debris or damage your floors. So I personally always vacuum carpets first before floors anyways, so that wasn't really a problem with me. But if you have a lot of hard floors and you want to do hard floors in separate increments where you'll be turning off your vacuum, then you have to remember to shut that brush roller off, and you can't even turn it off until you recline it. So you got to be careful with that because, again, it defaults to the on position. Presumably, I assume that was designed that way so that way customers don't think that their brush roll isn't turning, but it's just kind of weird. Also, the brush roller does shut off when it's in the upright position, as all good vacuums do, so that is, well, a good feature. So you don't have to worry about the brush roll burning your carpet or anything like that. It just works when you tell it to. So that's nice. Now, as far as emptying the bin, we press this yellow button right here and the whole canister pops off. We press the same yellow button again above a trash can and everything falls out. Ideally, you'd empty this outside, especially if you have allergies, or if you need to empty this inside for whatever reason, I recommend waiting until you just changed your trash bag, so that way there's no debris in it, and putting this all the way down in the trash bag and pressing the button so the trapdoor opens right at the base of the trash can, and there's no dust flying everywhere and basically getting poofed up into the air. It all just settles at the bottom of the bin. So that's the way to do it, and once you're done, you want to close this up, and you want to make sure that you wipe off the shroud. Well, I guess you'd have to wipe off the shroud before you close it up. There's a button right here that you can access, and that'll allow you to pull the bin off, and you want to wipe down the shroud with a dry cloth every time you empty it, and once you close it up, you want to wipe down the outside of it as well so there's no dust that settles on here and gets all over your machine. Now, if you look down here, there's a little gate that you can open to check for clogs, so if you have anything stuck in there, you can check that. And there's also another way to check for clogs as well on the back, which is something they actually improved. On the older Dysons, this was held in with a screw and this hose could break a lot. On this Multifloor 2, you just pull the hose up and you can easily check for clogs, and you can even replace this hose without any tools required. Now, one other thing is that every month or so, you want to check your filter. There's a little tab right here. Open this up, and check your filter. Now, some people have said that you can't see when the filter's dirty. You actually have to look on the inside, because if you follow where the cyclones are, that's just how you gotta look. So you gotta check the inside. It's supposed to be white. If it's not, then you might want to wash it. If it doesn't wash clear, then you might want to replace it. These are lifetime filters, so Dyson recommends that you change these about every 5 years. They say lifetime. What that really means is that they last 5 years. So you can wash this every month and change it about every 5 years. These are some of the longest lasting filters in the industry of bagless, but they will still eventually need replaced if you keep this machine for like 5 or 10 years. So if you do wash it, make sure that you don't use any soap, and make sure to let it dry for at least 48 hours before putting it back on. tab doesn't always like to snap in. And there's also a filter right down on the side of the ball that I recommend changing about every 2 years. Well, actually, this is the smaller machine, so with the same amount of usage, probably want to change the HEPA filter on this about every year. The exhaust is also on this side of the ball, so potentially you could have this blowing debris away on your bare floors, although I never found that to be an issue. It is something that some people have reported. Now, I did do a video on how to change the filters and empty the bin, all that, and I even demoed it with this machine, so I will show that in the description if you want to see a more in-depth tutorial on how to clean up your Dyson. So that's pretty much it as far as what you need to know about it. Now the question is this worth a potential look if you're looking for a cheap Dyson and you find one of these at a good deal? Well, as long as you're aware that the cleaner head doesn't work on every single type of carpeting, so it's just a matter of whether or not it likes your carpet. So if you've had one of these before and you know that you like it, not just a Dyson, but one of these specific styles, then you should be good. Or just in general, buy from a place where you have a good return policy, so that way it's not a problem. Now, if you find this for anywhere around $300 or $320, $350, don't buy it. Just save up your pennies and get the base model Dyson Ball Animal 3, which is $400, and sometimes you can even get that for a better deal. But if you find this around the $150 range, I would say it's okay. Once you get into $200, you can find the replacement multi-floor Origin for around that price, and you'd be getting a new machine. You can also, for around $300, get the last generation Dyson Ball Multi-Floor 1, which ironically is still in production despite this machine having been discontinued. But you can get this one in a total clean variant from Sam's Club for anywhere from $250 to $300, depending on what deals they're doing. So if you have a Sam's Club membership, if you took advantage of that $8 membership they had earlier as a promotion, then you can pick up one of these, and it's a really good value. It's a little bit heavier than this machine, but it also is a little bit more of a modern Dyson design, and of course you'd be getting a new machine, so you'd have the full warranty and a couple extra attachments. So this is a great option as well if you just really have to have that yellow color. So there's that, there's the multi-floor Origin, and you can still buy the Animal 2 right now, but again, I wouldn't pay full price for it when the Animal 3 is a much better machine. So basically my gist is, if you can get one of these multi-floor 2s for a really good deal, like less than $200, and it's in really good condition, or if it's so cheap that it doesn't matter what condition it's in, then go ahead and pick it up. One thing to note is that as of right now, all these machines are still under warranty because these came out in 2018. Actually 2017, I believe. So 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. So the oldest ones are just now starting to be out of warranty. So if you get one, now don't buy one broken expecting to have it fixed. But if you do buy one for a good price and it does have issues a couple months down the road, Dyson should be able to help you. Although your mileage may vary because this machine's not in production, so parts are going to get harder to find as time goes on. Whereas this style of Dyson is still in production, so you can still get parts for these all the time, and Dyson will have no problem fixing these. So it's just kind of a thing to keep in mind, but even with one of this, they will still take better care of you, at least if you have issues with the power head, than a company like Shark. So you do have some advantages there. The warranty is a lot better, and it's 5 years, so that's pretty good. So generally speaking, for the price that I paid for this multi-floor 2, which is around $150 plus $30 shipping, that's pretty okay. I paid about $180 out of all said and done, and that's not bad for a refurbished one of these. Although at the time I could get a multi-floor Origin for around $230 new, so if I wasn't buying this machine specifically, I'd recommend that for most people. Although this machine does have its flaws, it's built a little bit better than this multi-floor 2, and it's overall going to probably take care of you a little bit better because it has a slightly longer cord, a slightly bigger bin, slightly bigger filters, and a little bit more power. So if you have animals and that sort of thing, and you value having a lot of space, then that could be a factor as well. But both these machines clean very well, and they're very versatile for what they are, especially for the tools on an upright. So the multi-floor 2 does still get my recommendation if you can find it for the right price. So again, around $150, to $180, or of course cheaper, that's about what I want to pay for one of these and potentially be happy with it. If you're paying much more, just save up your pennies and get a Ball Animal 3, or if you want to save $100, get the Total Clean or the Origin that you see here. So that's pretty much that. Anyways, this was Intellitech Studios signing out with my full in-depth review of the Dyson Ball Multifloor 2, model number UP19. Again, this was Intellitech Studios. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you all have a good one. Peace. If you have any questions about this machine, feel free to drop them in the comments below.